Hey everyone, this video we're going to learn about making a double extraction of chaga. This is my ground up chaga. I had these chunks that I bought on eBay, wild harvested chaga. And I'm going to go ahead, or actually I already blended them in a blender and got them as fine as I could possibly make them and left some space at the top of the jar to pour vodka over. Okay, this is the vodka that I'm using. It's 80 proof. You want to get pretty high proof vodka for the extraction process. I'm going to go ahead and pour that in the jar and then put the lid on. Okay, so I poured some in. It's bubbling down to the bottom. There's a lot of little nooks and crannies that it has to settle into. While I'm waiting for that, I'm making some chaga tea. I used some of the chunks with some water. Actually forgot about it, so it's the water's evaporating, but it'll be really strong chaga tea, which tastes really good. Kind of looks like coffee, actually. Alright, so filled up the rest of the jar, almost to the top. You want to leave a little bit of space so that when you shake it, there's a little bit of give and you can move the particles around, because basically you want to expose as much surface area and agitation to the jar every day if you can. And I'm going to leave this for 8 weeks. I'm going to come back to it and then we're going to do the second part of the extraction, which is the hot water extraction. Alright, so it's been a month. I'm actually going to go ahead and start the hot water extraction. You usually want to wait 2 months from the date that you start the alcohol extraction to fully extract the compounds. But I actually had this sitting on a heating pad and I was shaking it every day, and so I think a lot of the compounds are probably released already. I think 2 months is probably to be safe, and it's already getting kind of cold and gray here, so I want to use the medicines that are in the chaga mushrooms sooner than later. So I'm going to go ahead and do it now. I decided also to make more of the alcohol extract, so I poured off what was in here originally after maybe just a couple days and poured it into a bottle, and then I refilled it up with more alcohol, and that way I'll be able to make a larger quantity of the chaga mushroom extract. So yeah, not really following a very strict recipe here, but I want you guys to get the overall important concepts. So you start with the alcohol extract. You try to create as much surface area as possible of the mushrooms by grinding them into a powder as fine as you possibly can. You let it sit for a long time. You're extracting out all of those, medicinal alcohol heat unstable compounds, because you're taking out the things that once you heat it would have been destroyed. So you're taking that out of the chaga, you're putting the alcohol aside, and then we're going to go ahead and use the leftover ground up chaga and do a hot water extract. So I'm going to go ahead and empty out all of the alcohol that's in here, and then we're going to place that aside and take a look at what we have left over. Alright, so I strained out all the ground chaga. You can see it kind of looks like coffee grounds there. Just stirred it around a little bit to make sure all the alcohol drained below. And I made sure to use stainless steel and glass. Like I was about to use a non-stick pot for the alcohol to go into, but I decided not to because it's possible that some of the chemicals in the non-stick pot are going to get dissolved into the alcohol as well. Because remember, alcohol sucks compounds and substances out, and chemicals and different types of molecules out of whatever it touches. So just as it extracted things out of the chaga mushroom, it also could extract chemicals out of plastics and pans and things like that. So I'm using glass and stainless steel just to be 100% careful. So I'm just letting it kind of drain in, and I bet some of the little pieces of chaga mushroom got into the alcohol. And keep watching to the end of the video, because at the end I'm going to explain, once you have it all bottled up, how to clarify the extract, so there's not really any sort of like grittiness, there's not any sort of, what's a good word for it, like cloudiness in it. It's just going to be the pure extract, and it's just going to be more pleasant to take when there's no texture to it. It's just the water and alcohol. Alright, so now that we have our ground up chaga mushroom powder, we're going to go ahead and put that into a pot and fill it up with water. And you usually want to use the same amount of alcohol that was extracted out. So we're going to measure that and put it back in the same volume of water into the pot with the ground chaga mushroom extract, or excuse me, the ground chaga mushroom. And I'll show you the next step from there. So as you can see, the total number was about 1 pint of the alcohol only extract. So I'm going to go ahead and store this alcohol for the time being, and then fill this back up with distilled water. Don't use tap water or anything with any sort of impurities or chemicals in it, and pour that onto the mushrooms. And then I'm also going to probably do another pint on top of that, and I'll explain why. Okay, so I poured my water over the ground mushroom, and I'm measuring to see how far it comes up the pot here, and I'm seeing that it comes right up to the bottom of those little slits, and that's 1 pint. So we're going to add the second pint in, and we're going to start cooking. Okay, so second pint of water has been added. You can see it's a little bit further up the spoon. The reason why I did that is because I want to end up with 1 pint of water, but I need to cook it for a long time. So what happens when you are cooking and boiling liquids is you're going to lose liquid. So I want to end up at 1 pint. So I'm at 2 pints right now. So I'm going to check it periodically as it's cooking, and once it gets back down to that first level that we took, that's when you know it's going to have 1 pint of water in there, and that means when we add it into the alcohol, it's going to be a 1-to-1 water to alcohol ratio, which is kind of what we're aiming for. Okay, so we're just about done here. I'm checking, and the water levels kind of come back to that original level that it was when I put the first pint of water in. Something I learned trying it this way is when you are cooking it with the lid on, it actually can start boiling, and you don't want it to boil. You want it to be under a boil the whole time. And then also, if you're cooking it with a lid on, it takes a lot longer for the water to come down to its original level, which is totally fine. I had it going for 6 or 7 hours, but at the end I had to take it off anyway to let the water evaporate off, so I could get to the right level. So if I were to do this again, I'd probably do it without the cover on, because literally with the lid on, I could not make it not boil, even on the lowest setting, on the lowest burner. So maybe just do it without the lid, might be easier. And yeah, actually also what I decided to do is I'm going to take this and go ahead and strain out the water, and then freeze all of this leftover ground chaga, and then do another hot water extraction after the freeze, because that will help break down some of the cellulose, maybe some of the actually it's probably chitin, I would imagine, the material that the mushroom is made out of. Whatever it is, the freezing will likely help soften the bonds, and then the water-soluble nutrients will come out even further. That way we can make sure we've taken everything out of this chaga mushroom. Okay, so just pulled the chaga out of the freezer. It's pretty hard. I'm just going to go ahead and throw it right back into the water and let it continue cooking. I'll probably pour another pint on top, and then cook it back down to that point on the spoon, the wooden spoon, and then it should be done. Okay, so we have our water extract, our hot water extract, and then this is the alcohol extract. I just went ahead and filtered out all the sediments after it was done extracting, so it ended up going for about 8 hours, and about 4 hours of the hot water extract, froze it, and then another 4 hours in the hot water extract. And then we did the alcohol earlier, and I'm going to go ahead and filter out the rest of the sediment that might be in the alcohol, because I'm trying to make it as clean as possible and just pure extract. Okay, and there we have it. That's the mixture of the alcohol extract and the water extract. And so this is going to be about 25% alcohol, because as you can recall, I used 100 proof alcohol with the alcohol extract, which is about 50% alcohol, and then the water extract is obviously 100% water. So when you add something that's like, let's say if you had 4 parts, so the water is going to be 2 parts water, and the alcohol is going to be 1 part water, 1 part alcohol. And so when you mix that together, you get 25% alcohol. And so the reason why you do that is if you go any lower, you can run the risk of not being able to preserve the extract for very long, because the extract will be exposed to bacteria and things like that, and will start to break down because of the bacteria, which you don't want. And then if you have it too much alcohol, I think you probably don't want to go over 35 maybe. I don't exactly know how much is too much. If you do too much, the alcohol can start to degrade the medicinal compounds and make it not last as long as well. So this is about 25, I think, and I'm gonna go ahead and bottle this up. Okay, so I bottled up the extract here and threw it in the refrigerator, and as you can kind of see, there's a little bit of sediment left on the bottom. So I'm just gonna go ahead and pour that off into a container, and then wash the bottle out, get that sediment out, and then pour it back into the container so that it's more clarified. Trying not to disturb the sediment too much because I don't want to pour it out. Yeah, you can see it kind of, all that muck in the bottom is still there. Yeah, and I'm just gonna go ahead and wash that out and pour all of this back in. Okay, I poured it back in. No more sediment at the bottom. It's not the end of the world if it's in there, but I just think it's a more pleasant experience to take the chaga when it doesn't have that chalky sediment in there. All right, guys, I hope you liked this video. I'd love to hear your comments and questions in the comments below. And then I'll be doing more videos on extractions and herbal extractions, mushroom extractions now in the wintertime, now that we're not growing as much outside. So definitely stay tuned, stay subscribed, and I'll see you next time.